All right. I am really excited about this training. I've been wanting to do it for a while, but if you didn't know, because maybe you live under a rock or we're not Instagram friends yet, I just moved from California to Missouri and it has been wild. And so I've just been slammed. But I've been wanting to do this training because ever since Q rolled out with the compensation plan change for customers, my mind was immediately like, oh my gosh, this just got so much cooler for a couple of reasons. We all know Q Sciences has the best compensation plan, but if you don't know a little bit about my backstory, this is actually my second network marketing company. So I was previously with a different company. We won't say it, but cough, cough, pink drink. And if you know, you know. And I was there for 3 years. It took me 2.5 years to build to I was like kind of their top promotion. They're not the tippy top, but up there at the free car, quote unquote. And that entire company ran off of getting customers, but the compensation plan sucked. So you would help people get all these customers, and we had this banging system, but it just didn't match up with people making money. And so when we came over here to Q, Casey and I, we were like, we're going to do it totally different. Like, we're not doing it the way that we did it before. We're not getting people stuck on a hamster wheel. This is so much better. And so we really poured into the business perspective of things, which I think at this point, everybody knows that system. Everybody's watched the launch video with Brittany, I think. Like, we know what we're doing with the business, but now it's really time to dial in on how to get the customers, because you really will be someone who naturally falls more to one side or the other. That's not to say that you can't learn how to run your business in both directions, being the business direction and the customer direction, but you're probably going to feel one come more naturally to you. I know on Mike and Rainey's training the other night, he was very clear about him being a recruiter, right? He likes recruiting. I'm actually the same way, but the two of us are not the norm. In the field of network marketing, more people do not identify with being recruiters. And so the business side of things can sometimes feel really daunting for people, but sharing about products that they're using comes super naturally. So, what I'm going to teach you tonight is the system that I actually used at my last company for my team there. And just so you know that I'm not just like blowing smoke up your butt, by the time I left that company to come to Q, my team there, we were bringing in 100, sometimes upwards of 200 new customers every single month using this system. So it does work, I promise you. It's very, very simple. As soon as we talk about it, you're going to be like, that was the system, Mandy. But if you follow it step by step by step over and over and over again, you're going to watch it come really naturally. And then you're going to see, oh my gosh, simplicity is key when it comes to customers. Okay. So I'm going to pull up my notes here. We're going to talk about customer acquisition tonight. Okay. Here's the thing: customers and ambassadors, totally different, right? Customers have pros and cons, and ambassadors have pros and cons. So when we're talking about this, know that the system for getting customers sounds very simple. You have to make sure you follow up very heavily, though. I've talked about this before. A customer has a consumer mindset, meaning they are work again and again and again, because if you don't continue to provide customer service, they are going to leave. They're not here for a paycheck, they're not making money, they're not invested into the business concept of Q. And so after we talk about these three steps of how to get a customer, how to acquire the customers, just make sure you know you have to follow up and follow through, or all that work you did to get the customer is going to just kind of crumble beneath your feet, because they are going to leave. Okay. So three steps. The three steps, if you're taking notes, are content, action, connection. Okay, we're going to go over each one. So, the first step is content. This is really what's luring your people in. And I want you to think exposure. If you're someone who's been in network marketing for a long time, you've probably heard the stats of someone needing to be exposed to something around 12 times before they're ready to pull the trigger. Okay, so everything that you're doing, probably mostly on social media, but in person too, you are exposing people to the Q Sciences products, right? So there's a couple different ways that you could do this. I'm going to talk first about social media, because I think that's where everybody pretty heavily works at this point, this day and age in network marketing. And then we'll talk about in person too, because you don't ever want to put that on the back burner. Okay. So when you're talking about social media, Content and exposure is anything that you're putting up about your products. Okay. Sometimes people overthink this. When we're talking about ambassadors, right? We're really luring people in who have the big buy-in, they have the business mindset. We're kind of more picky, if you will. When you're talking about customers, you want to cast a wide net because anyone and everyone could be a Q Sciences customer. We literally have everything and it just keeps coming, right? So this does not have to be a super intense novel page post. It does not need to be a live video where you're talking about biosync technology. This is just exposing people. So don't overthink it. Shake up your drink in your shaker cup and make a boomerang and put what the key benefits of that product are. I talked about her once before on a training, but Cassidy Cecil, I believe she's silver or gold. She does the story every single day where she is just taking her Q core and she tosses the capsules in the air and she catches them in her mouth and she is consistent every single day. It is there. Why? Because she is consistently exposing people to the products that she is using to the point where maybe the first 3 times people see it, they're just kind of like, what the heck is she even doing? But by the time they're noticing this is every day, they're thinking, like, what the heck even is that? What is she taking? Why is she doing this? Maybe it's not even like positive curiosity, but they're thinking about it, right? It's now stuck in their brain of saying, like, is she going to do that again? I wonder what that does for her. Like, why does she do this every day? Right? Curiosity. It creates customer curiosity. That was one example, you guys, but this could also be like a before and after photo. Jen on my team, she's had crazy hair growth with collagen. She's shared before and after photos. Other people who are not Jen have shared her before and after photos, testimonies, what products you take, stories of your customers. This is a really great one that I love. But if you have customers who are willing to give you feedback, you could simply ask them, like, hey, would you mind texting me just like a review? Would you give me a little feedback in a text of like what this product has done for you? And then can I screenshot that and share it? You could even make their identity anonymous by covering up their name, but you're getting that feedback where you can be like, oh my gosh, you guys, these text messages from my customers make my day. Listen to how this person has loved our Excel cream, right? Exposure, exposure, exposure. Little pieces consistently over long periods of time is what's going to build your customer base. Think about jingles, okay? Jingles for commercials, right? I feel like this is something maybe that's not super relevant anymore because now we have like streaming services, but I know all of you guys are at least millennials or older on here because I can see your faces and I know you. Jingles, the famous, I think of the Meow Mix one. Meow, 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 meow. Like, why do I still remember that? Because they were so consistent and it was on all the time to the point that when I think of cat food, I buy Meow Mix and I don't even have a cat anymore. And I still think of Meow Mix. That's what you want to be. You want to be so consistent that people know what you're taking. Okay. That's your exposure content. The other thing I want to talk about with this is you need to be the brand. Okay. If you're trying to sell products that you don't use, this is not going to go very well for you. People's very first question, even for someone like me who's led very heavily with the business for a year and a half, their first question is almost always, what do you take? Do you like the products? Do they work? People want to know. So if you're not using the products, you're going to have a very hard time selling the products. You're also going to have a really hard time showcasing them because you don't have them in your house, right? And so it's no longer really authentic and it feels salesy. If you're talking about the things that you are using, it comes naturally. People see you with it in person. Mike was talking about this the other night. He goes around to his job sites, right, with his I think, his sport drink in a water bottle, and he's just shaking it, right? You guys, how I built a huge chunk of my previous business, we had a drink that was a pink drink. I had that sucker in a clear glass water bottle at every single birthday party, event, grocery store trip, at Trader Joe's. It was with me all the time. Even if I had already drank one for the day, if I knew I was going somewhere, best believe I made up another one and walked around with it in my water bottle and then just stuck it in my fridge at the end of the night for the next day because you want people to see you with it. So even if you're you're not super heavy on social media, this can still be done in person just by you being the brand. Be the brand. Take your greens to the park when you're meeting your mom friends. Bring those samples. Like talk about it, right? Like, oh my gosh, I just love this so much. All you have to do is expose them to it. You don't have to sell them on it yet. You're just exposing people. Okay. Step one. Step two is the action step. Okay. Now you have to do the action step. Where I see people mess up over the last 4.5 years of me doing this is that people do the exposure. They're consistent. They post, they got their drink in person. My phone does not want to stay upright for my notes. They have all the things going like that, but they never take the action step. And so their business goes nowhere. What is the action step? It's actually talking to people about ordering. Okay. You could be a billboard. I don't suggest that, but you could be a billboard for Q Sciences with products in every single post all over your Facebook with all the facts telling everybody how great it is. But if you don't ever ask people to order, you are almost never going to get a sale because very few people are going to come to you. That's just the way that this industry is. We would love that, right? If we could just put like a sign across their forehead being like, come buy my products, and everybody came and asked us, but it just doesn't work that way. You have to be the approacher. So the action step is talking to people. And the consistency part of this is where I really saw it work when I did this whole system before. People would put up a post, right? And their post, let's say it was their testimony on sport. Like maybe I put up a post about my husband. I take a cute picture of him in his law enforcement uniform and he has a sport drink, like how Mike carries around. And I'm talking about how he loves the sport drink, right? And how he needs the energy in his law enforcement job and blah, 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 blah. I'm giving a testimony. The next day, I'm going to go and I'm going to message every single person who liked that post. Now, this is hit and miss for some people. You have to know that what works for me, what works for someone else, it might not work for you. It might not jive for you. But this is what I saw work before. Put the post up. You get 17 likes. Honey, you're sending 17 messages. They are not sales pitchy, right? They are not gross and spammy. Hey girl, I sell these really awesome health products, blah, 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 blah. No, you're just saying, hey Danielle, I saw you like my post yesterday about my husband taking his sport. I don't know if you were just being sweet and showing support, but I really love it too. If I sent you some info, would you check it out? Simple, guys. Simple, simple, simple. Reach out messages that are more than like 30 seconds or 3 or 4 sentences. They're not going to get a response. Or if they do, you came off really spammy because it was too much, right? You want short, sweet, to the point. Now, in my experience with customers, I always find it best to be really direct. When I try and beat around the bush, right, and I'm like not getting to the point, it almost feels more salesy than if I just straight up ask, like, hey, listen, I run a small business. I saw you liked my post. If I sent you some info, would you check it out? Ask, you guys, just get to the point. Because if you're like, hey, Heather, oh my gosh, I've been watching you and your kids. I saw you went to the movies. How was the movie? Was it good? Oh, I hope your husband's doing really great. Also, could I send you some info on the products I sell? Like, really what she just heard is you were talking to me about nothing just so you could sell me something. Okay. So just be straight and to the point. That's action. Now, if you were to do this with a story, it would be the same thing, or a live video, it would be the same thing. Basically, the people who are engaging with you on your exposure content, they're going to get contacted. You're going to take the action step to contact them about what they engaged on. Now, if you're doing this strategically, where you're putting up some kind of content, I'll get to in person in a second, but on social media, where you're putting up some kind of content like 3 times a week, every other day, you can flip flop, right? Like Monday, you put up a story. Tuesday, you message the people who watched that story. Hey, Mike, I saw you. So I'm talking to Mike because he's right next to my face on this screen. Hey, Mike, I saw that you watched my story yesterday where I was talking about my Q Core. I'm not sure if you've ever seen what I've shared about it, but it's really transformed my health. If I sent you some info, would you check it out? I say basically the same thing all the time, you guys, because you just want to know if you can send them info. Okay. Then the next day, maybe I put up a post, a testimony post. On Thursday, I'm going to send messages to the people who liked that testimony post. Then on Friday, maybe I go live. And on Saturday, I'm going to contact the people who had watched my live video. If you're flip-flopping it, it really can become a very natural cycle where you wake up and you know what you're doing that day. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, if you're in person, the action and the exposure could possibly come at the same time, especially if you're talking about at an event, right? The content is probably the invite, or the content is the exposure at the park to the drink itself. And maybe the action is giving them a sample or saying, hey, I noticed that you'd been talking about being really tired. You have your drink, right? You're at the park. I take this sports stuff every single day. I really love it. I have a stick in my bag. Do you want one? Exposure, little bits, action. Action is asking if they want to try it, asking if you can give a sample, asking if they want information. Okay. Now, when you're doing the action part, make sure that you're not then like word vomiting on them. Okay. And we're going to get to this because step 3 is connection. Okay. Now, in-person connection and social media connection are very different. Okay. Because if you try to get too heavy on the connection when you're in the same room as someone, it can feel super weird. Like they're asking you questions and you're like, you know what? I know we're at the park right now. Do you mind if I put you in a chat with my friend Casey? And they're kind of like, what? Can you not just like tell me about it in person? I don't understand. So connection in person is probably going to look different, but you maybe can refer them to a page. So if you're in person with someone, let's say you gave them the sample stick of sport, you're going to connect them to that Facebook page. Hey, you know what? There's actually this really cool Facebook page. It's called the Q Sciences Way. It's like a bunch of testimonies of people who all use these products. I'm going to invite you to it. When you get home, accept it and let me know. I'm going to tag you in some of the information on sport. Right. Or, you know what, my friend Jessica, she loves the sport. I would love to share her story with you. Maybe I'll send it to you when we get home. Like make it more casual. Don't get super connecty in person because then it's just going to feel weird. But if you're talking to someone online, connection is right away. Okay. So let's walk through the possible scenario. You put up a story about your sport. The next day you send messages asking if you can get them information on the sport. They say yes. You're going to connect. Okay. Again, this might be different for other people. Maybe you send them the infographic. In my experience, the connection, and I'm going to explain why, is key even when you're talking about a customer. Okay. And this is going to look similar to the business because I know we connect to an upline for a business potential, but with a customer potential, the reason you would do connection is different. So I would say, you know what? I'm really not a product guru. I love taking these myself, but I don't know all the information. I want to make sure you get the right info. I connect you to my friend Casey. Even if you're like a nutritionist, you guys, you don't know all the info. You want to make sure someone else gives them the right stuff. You're not actually connecting them because you don't know what you're doing. We know you know what you're doing. We know you know the info on the products. We know. Some of you are like similar to me, and we could rattle off like a 40-page essay on gut health. Really, I could, seriously, but you don't want to because you don't want to be the person who closes the deal. Very similarly to the reason that we do this for the business perspective, but you want to give third-party validation. That's the biggest thing with connection. And I'm going to talk about Bridgerton for a second because I'm obsessed, but also I think it's a perfect example of this. So does anybody else watch Bridgerton? Drop me a comment if you do. I can't get enough of it right now, but literally 2 weeks ago, I swore I would never watch it. It has been on my Netflix for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. I've looked at it every time and I've been like, that looks stupid. I'm not going to watch it. Not for me. I don't like those kind of shows. Then I saw a thread on Twitter of about 900,000 people talking about Bridgerton. And I was like, well, dang, if 900,000 people on Twitter think it's that great, like maybe I should just try it. Okay. This same thing, by the way, happened to Casey with Yellowstone, the Yellowstone show. Okay. Now, granted, I don't think she ever really ended up liking it, but she did watch all the seasons. Okay. That is third-party validation. It is you seeing a sea of other people like something and thinking, well, wait, maybe I am interested. Okay, this happens with products all the time, probably to you, and you don't even realize it. It's why we have the term influencers on the internet, because people are persuaded by third-party validation. So when you put them into a chat with someone, it doesn't even need to be an upline, you guys, connecting to someone. What you're showing them is, I'm not the only one who likes these products. I'm not the only one who wants you to try these products. I'm not the only one who's telling you that these products are so great. That is the main reason you're connecting them, so that they see one other person who's really liking the products and telling them that they're good. The second reason is, you don't want to be the person to sell them, okay? The authenticity of just sharing about products you love is very well maintained if you're never actually the person who's selling the products, right? You're going to get the credit, you're going to send your link, but you're not the person who's going to sell them the products. Who you connect them to is going to sell them the products, right? You're saying, let me connect you to my friend Casey. Like, I just want to make sure you get the best info. And really, she's like a supplement guru. Say whatever you want, edify them, brag them up. They don't really have to be a supplement guru, but they're going to come in with the information like they are. And then they're the person who's going to introduce themselves and say, hey, it's so nice to meet you. My name's Mandy. I've been working in the supplement industry for going on 5 years. I'm a really crunchy mom. I've learned a lot along the way. Did you have any specific health goals? Right? They're just going to ask if they have health goals. They're not going to spiel them on sport. They're not going to give them a 9 million paragraph voice memo text on why they need Rev. They're going to ask what their health goals are. And they're going to assess, because they might have been drawn in by your sport post, but maybe they're looking to lose weight and they actually need trim. Okay, do you get what I'm saying there? If we're trying to just sell products to sell products, we're not going to have long-term customers. If we take a second to assess what they actually need, we can feed them the information for a product that they really are going to benefit from. And your sales are going to increase because you're going to close more often, right? Let's say that I put a post up about my sport, and then I get into a conversation with someone and I'm giving them all the information on sport and it's so great, but they have a thyroid issue. And they're like, yeah, I mean, that sounds really great, but I don't really know if I need it, because I don't struggle with that as much as I do like my thyroid problems. If we would have just addressed the situation from the beginning of saying, what are your health goals? Then we maybe didn't even tell them about sport. Sport was the exposure. Sport got the conversation started, but then we're going to actually fill the gap that they need for them. And we're going to make the sale and we're going to keep the customer long-term. And that is going to go much smoother if you do the connection step, because it just takes you out of the picture. If you're doing these three-way chats correctly, once you start the conversation, you're really not going to talk much. And what I always coached my team on when we were doing this really heavily is introduce me and then let me do all the talking, because you want to keep it very frank. Hey, it's so nice to meet you. Do you have any health goals? They tell you what their health goals are. I come back and I say, awesome, you need these products. Check it out. Do you have any questions? They're like, no, that sounds great. Okay, did you want to order? Right? Boom, 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 boom. And you are going to flood with customers because you really start to disperse responsibilities. So you're going to be the person who's bringing in the contacts, and your upline or your mentor, whoever you're working with, they're going to be closing the deals. And so it's a consistent flow, because you're bringing them in, your upline's closing them. You're bringing them in, your upline's closing them. And everybody has a specific job. Does that make sense? It's like the Ford factory of Q Science's customers. We all have our specific jobs. And if we function in the system, it just works. Okay. Keep it business. I have a couple notes on the connection steps. Keep it business. Sometimes I have seen three-way chats for products go awry because people feel like they need to be chit-chatty with their friend and it distracts from the conversation, okay? They're in the three-way chat with your upline or your mentor because they want information on these products. So don't chime in and be like, hey, I just wanted to check in you. How's the baby? Like, we're trying to bring the conversation back alive. So we start talking about personal stuff. You don't want to do that in these chats. These chats are meant specifically for business. If it dies off, it means the timing wasn't right and they're just not ready to get the products yet. Okay. And that happens. That happens. I had someone this morning, message me that I have known since I was 12. She's seen me do network marketing for 4.5 years. And she messaged me today. I've talked to her a bunch of times, messaged me today saying, hey, I think I'm finally ready. Okay. Timing is everything, you guys. So if you get into these conversations and they fizzle out, the timing just wasn't right. And that's okay. Okay. That's the system. The system is content. Get your exposures out there at least 3 times a week. Okay. At least 3 times a week. Mix it up, a story, a post, go to the park with your drink, invite people to an event, right? Get your exposure out there. Action, following through with asking people, can you get them info? Do they want to try the products? Can you give them a sample? Okay. And then connection to your upline or your mentor or whoever you're working with to close that deal for you on customers. Okay. Now, tips I have: keep a list of the people that you have in 3-way chats. Just because you've put them into a 3-way chat with your mentor does not mean that your mentor has this all organized. Okay. At the height of this whole system at my last company, I literally was in probably 50 new messages a day, 50 new. I could not keep track. And Casey, like, I know she can vouch for this too. At a certain point, you're just like opening your inbox and starting at the bottom and working your way to the top, and you have no idea who you're even talking to. So if you have potentials that are in 3-way chats, keep a list of those people. And then if you need, like, sometimes it doesn't make sense for you to be the person to follow up. You need your upline to do the follow up. I love when people send me a list and say, hey, Mandy, these are the people you're in 3-way chats with on Facebook. Would you mind following up with them? Because then all I have to do is search their name and say, hey, Josie, did you get my last message? Hey, Heather, did you get my last message? Hey, Grace, did you listen to that voice memo I sent? Right? It's easy because I didn't have to keep it organized. Their potentials are organized in their lists, and that's going to help you out a lot so people don't slip through the cracks. Second tip, find what works for you. I already said this, but have at least 3 days a week minimum. Sometimes people also just rotate. Like what I do a lot is a post one day, a story the next day, a post one day, a reel the next day. So I am putting content up every day about something, but I'm rotating where it's at, so that the people who watch my stories are maybe not the people who are watching my reels. And so I'm kind of getting content exposure all over the place. I work very heavily on social media, if you haven't gotten that just yet. And then also knowing that customers are a long-term game. Okay. Now, the short-term game of customers is getting people to try products. The long-term game is keeping them, and also flipping your customers into ambassadors. You guys, people don't think about this a lot. This was a huge money maker for me at my last company, where customers were primarily what we brought in. I would bring people in and then I'd say, wouldn't it be nice if you covered the cost of your products? And they were like, oh yeah, how do I do that? And then I get to say, this is what I do. Like, this is what I do for work. Let me help you. I'll help you. I'll help you find a couple people, some friends or accountability partners. If anything, it'll help you like save a couple, 50, $100 a month. Right? That's the long-term game of customers, right? So build the relationship, provide the good customer service, follow up, and then approach them. Hey, I know you've been really liking your products. Like, what about covering the cost? Or, hey, you're way more likely to see success in this when you have accountability partners. Could I help you find like 2 people to try it with you? Approach. The next tip that I have is launching into this 3-step system. So when you have new ambassadors who are coming in, and this might maybe be something that I can do a whole nother training on so that this isn't too long. But what I would immediately do with new ambassadors is I would have them talk about their products, share about their products, and ask for accountability partners from day one. That was one of the first thing they did before we even went into the business. We talked about getting them a couple accountability partners for the products. Number one, people who have accountability partners are going to take the products longer. So even if they kind of fizzle for the business side of things, they're going to fall in love with the products, and they're going to have those people 2 to 3 people who are taking them with them. But also, accountability partners are typically friends and family. And the people who are the quickest to support you with an order are typically friends and family. So if you have somebody sign up and they immediately have 2 to 3 people who are accountability partners with them for the products, they're also immediately getting a paycheck. Right. And so that builds their belief into the business, and they kind of get sparked. They're like ready to go, and they're making money, which then they can share about, and it leads to business people. Because when you have someone come in and they're now they just got accountability partners for the products, but they got a paycheck, now they can do a post about having a paycheck, and it attracts a different type of people. Okay, so launching people into these 3 steps. And then I'm going to expand on that another time because that's kind of long. Does anybody have any questions before we hop off on this? If you do, you can unmute. Awesome. Okay. Content, action, connection, repeat. Content, action, connection, repeat. Okay. I hope this was helpful. I'm going to upload it to YouTube. You guys have a really great night.